Welcome, welcome. To those of you who don't know me, my name's Michelle McFadden. I am the Business Development Advisor with the Regional Business Support Network. The Regional Business Support Network is funded by the Town of Olds, Community Futures Central Alberta, and Prairies Economic Development Canada. And through that funding, we can bring these great learning opportunities for small business owners in Central Alberta to you at no cost. I always say, I'm the good four-letter F word. I'm free. This is great. I'm glad you're here. We've got some established business owners that I know who have some great employees, but I also know what it's like to hire people and have a headache doing it, either before or after. So today we have a very special and dear friend of mine. We have Ashton Seelig, who is the Marketing Specialist and Employer Liaison at Career Assistance Network. Another amazing funded service provider in Central Alberta. Again, she's the good four-letter F word too. And so they have amazing services for employers. You need to have, after this presentation, you need to reach out to Ashton. I will be sending out her email. She's graciously given us the copy of her slides today, so I'll be sending that out with the recording as well. So Ashton, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pass the microphone to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, so as Michelle has graciously introduced myself, I'm Ashton from Career Assistance Network, and we're here to talk about how to hire the right people. So to kind of just get started, I'm just going to give a little bit about myself. Not too long, because I want to concentrate on all the great information and fun facts we can really look at when hiring. So we're going to talk about how to write job ads effectively, so attracting the right candidates through our job ads. We're going to talk about how do we pre-screen those resumes, how do we pick out what looks good, what doesn't. We're also going to talk about interviewing smarter, not harder. So what are some easy tips and tricks that we can do in our interview process to help you out? And then finally, hiring for fit. So seeing what fits personality-wise, which we're going to focus on in the interview part. And then maybe if we see skill deficits, how can we achieve that through the training plan? So about Career Assistance Network. Well, we have been in Central Alberta since 1996. So I myself have worked for CAN for over 10 years now, which is crazy to think. But we have helped thousands of clients throughout Central Alberta. We go as far north as Leduc, as far south as Mountain View County, from the BC border to all the way to about Hanna. In terms of job seekers, and then we go all the way to the Saskatchewan border for employers as well. So I have highlighted our services there, but essentially we're a private company. There's 21 of us covering that entire region from both job seekers and employers. So we're funded by the Government of Alberta and Government of Canada to help job seekers find work through resume development, interview prep, career planning, safety tickets, etc. But we also help employers with the recruitment process. So everything we talk about today, I can help you with one-on-one. So whether it's creating your job ad, promoting your job ad, I can also sit in on interviews. I can give you suggestion on interview questions. I can pre-screen candidates for you or with you. And then we can also discuss training and where do we go for wage subsidies or training subsidies. So that's just kind of an introduction to us. Like I said, I've been in this role for about 10 years. Throughout that time, the majority of the time, I've been serving Olds and Mountain View County. I also serve right now Lacombe County, Ponoka County, and Clearwater County. So, attracting the right person. Where do we start? Well, the first is the actual job ad itself. So the job ad really sets the tone to the job seeker and sets the tone to the candidate you want to see. So the key with job ads is we really want to show who your company is in a quick snapshot while focusing in on exactly what you need, okay? So Some tips and tricks when writing compelling job ads. Now, we do have a YouTube video where I go into this extensively. I think it's like a 15-minute YouTube video. But just some really quick tips and tricks. I find most employers can really tell me in a quick snapshot what they need, but really to go from a C or a B to an A, try some of these tips. The first one is writing concise, easy to read formatting and writing style. So how I always start is the job title. I give a little description about you, your company, what you do. So a quick kind of like marketing hit point, 2 or 3 sentences about what you do or what you're about. Then give about a paragraph of what the job actually is. But what we want to focus on is easy to read. Sometimes when we're hiring for niche or upper level positions, we want to use a lot of industry terminology. But if we're open to people coming in without experience, it's kind of hard to decipher what that actually means. So sometimes understanding the type of candidate you want to will also help you play with the type of words that you're putting into it. So if you're hiring for an administrator, you're open to someone with no previous experience, but really good personal skills. Maybe we don't talk about all the specific financial things we're going to do because they might not understand that. So understanding where we need to use terminology, but also where we can simplify those words as best as possible, depending on the audience. Obviously, if we want someone with lots of experience and who has the industry experience, please use that terminology, because then again, if they understand the terminology, they're going to apply. If they don't, then they're probably not going to apply because they just don't understand it. Next, ensure that the job title matches the job description for search engine purposes. I find this a lot, and what we suggest to our job seekers is actually searching by skills versus job titles, because there's so many ways to call so many different things, right? When I search administrator, it comes up with front desk clerks, but when I come up with clerks, it comes up with unit clerks. So depending on what your role is, I either say simplify the job title so that it's easily searchable, or if you're going to use a fancier job title, then understand we want to simplify our language in the job description, because it's all about fine-tuning and getting our job ad noticed within those search engines. So one way I kind of think about it is if I was a job seeker and looking for work in this field, what kind of words would I type in? Right? If I'm food and beverage industry, I for sure want to put in somewhere food and beverage. I want to put in cook. I want to put in dishwasher. I want to put in all of those kind of keywords, just like job seekers do in resumes by putting in keywords employers want to see. Employers should put in keywords in their job ad so that job seekers can easily find the job ad when searching. Outline the type of role and location. I find this isn't always forefront, but understanding what type of role, meaning, are you full-time, part-time, contract, permanent? Is it on-site, off-site, hybrid? Getting a full picture and understanding right away also can weed out a lot of people. Because if you automatically say, this is full-time, permanent, hybrid work, then the understanding is mutual and clear between you and the job seeker. You've done your due diligence in that first step. And understanding location. So lots of times I see people post that the jobs in Alberta because they're trying to get a full scope of job seekers. And I understand that to a point, but then it gets frustrating when someone applies from, let's say, Grand Prairie, and you're like, oh, Grand Prairie's too far. So we will talk about where to post as well, but knowing that if you have a location in mind, post that location, but let's explore different ways to promote your ad to get the people you want. Talk about your company. So I've already said this, but give a snapshot about your company, what you do. I find this a lot when we post because lots of people don't actually know what we do. So by giving a little snapshot of it, it gives them an understanding of what the job might actually be like, or better yet, the environment they will be in. Also include a brief job description. So yes, qualifications are the most important part. But we also want to give them, again, a quick snapshot of what that day-to-day will look like. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It can be what I call a Cliff Notes version. So a general overview. In the interview, you can bring the full job description, go over it and see if they have questions in that. But in the job ad, we want just, again, that brief snapshot of what a typical day would look like so that there's no surprises. They're not underestimating what they're getting into. And most importantly, what I like to do with job ads is I start the qualifications with the most important at the top. It's the first thing that they read. We read in top to bottom order. So I like to put the most important at the bottom and then trickle down. And then at the end, if there's things that I would like to have but aren't super critical, put it at the end. If you put it at the top, even if you end it with this is considered an asset, they tend to think that that's the most important thing. So put your assets at the bottom, put the rest of your qualifications from most to least important. And don't forget to tell them how to apply, especially when we're posting in places like physical job boards, when we're giving our posting online. It's really important you tell them very clear instructions on how you want them to apply. If you want them to apply through one specific way, we need to talk about it in everywhere we post. So just being consistent and very clear on how you need them to apply. Now, where do I post job ads? This is a big slide. So we're just going to go over it again, Cliff Notes version. So yes, you do have your job search websites. Most people go to the websites, right? There's Alice, which is the Alberta Learning Information System. That's completely free for you to use. You do have to manually enter it and remove it from the Alice website, but it is free. Canada Job Bank is free. I do know Canada Job Bank can be a headache because it is quite the process to get it on. But it is the oldest and most widely accepted website for sure. There is Indeed. I personally have more cons to Indeed than pros to Indeed. Michelle has heard many of my rants with Indeed. Yes, it is the place that most job seekers go, but it is very expensive for employers. It changes the job seeker's resume, so it causes more of a headache for you to understand what is happening to the resume. And it doesn't always reach the audience. Plus, Indeed pulls from other websites, so then it's a harder competition field. LinkedIn is great because it's free, and you can actually put in your LinkedIn job ad how you want them to apply. So you can literally say right at the top, please do not apply through LinkedIn, apply through this way, and you won't be denied. You would be denied if you tried to do that with Indeed, but you won't with LinkedIn. And again, another free option. I have other job search websites listed there. Again, job search websites are nice because everyone searches online, but they can be costly and expensive. So I would say use them to your advantage, but also think about the type of user that's using those websites. If we're looking at entry-level positions, I'm probably going to look at Alice, Canada Job Bank, maybe Indeed if I have the money. But if I'm looking for high-end managers, if I'm looking for someone very niche, like an aviation technician, then I'm going to go searching more on LinkedIn, Workopolis, Eluda, ZipRecruiter, kind of those more niche, high-end type websites, okay? Speaking of that, post-secondary. If you require education as part of your position that you're hiring for, why aren't we going to post-secondary? Go straight to the source. They have alumni associations that talk to recent graduates and commonly promote people that want their types of degree. On the flip side, then you're getting the degree you want. So for example, one of my connections is an accountant in Ontario, because I used to live in Ontario, not that we work in Ontario. But he's an accountant in Ontario, and he, with his firm, he only hires graduates from Brock University. So he actually has a relationship with Brock, with their alumni association, to talk with their accounting students as they're graduating, or to pick them up once they've graduated and let them know what they're hiring for. I know Old College, Red Deer Polytechnic do those same things. They'll bring you in for presentations. They'll highlight your company if that's what you're looking for, and especially if you're looking for graduates within the programs that they offer. So talk to your post-secondary. Service providers, so people like myself. So there are plenty of us throughout Alberta, and we help a variety of clients. So I know lots of people will say, Ashton, what's the difference between you and EPSS or MCG Careers or Braden Center or Pallid Group? Quite honestly, on the forefront, there's not much difference. We help clients in the exact same way, but what you don't see in the background is our contracts actually cover different regions, different types of people. And quite honestly, some of us have training programs that are very specific and very niche to different industries. So if you're ever curious of who the service provider is in your area to connect with maybe potential clients that fit what you need, you can always reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to let you know all the service providers that are in the areas that you're looking for. Again, we're free. Post-secondary will likely be free. I haven't heard of anyone paying for post-secondary connections, and service providers are free as well. We're just here to help people find work. So why not use you as a tool? As I always say to job seekers, when we're looking for work, we want multiple tools. We want multiple ways to look for work. As an employer, it's the same thing. We want multiple tools in our toolbox, so multiple ways to find these people. There's also associations. I worked on a research project for the Alice website on different career paths, and I can tell you for a fact that there is an association for every industry and position you can think of, not only within Alberta, but within Canada. So reach out to your associations. A lot of them, even if you're members or not members, will have job posting applications or job ad posts. So why not go to them? I had an oil field company looking for paramedics, and I said, have you talked to the Alberta Paramedics Association of Alberta? And they went, no. I was like, that's the first place I would go. You have to be regulated to be a paramedic. So why not just post right on the association's website? Because that's where they are anyway. So easy hurdles like that, most of them are low to no cost. So again, it's going to save a little bang for your buck. And if you're a regulated industry, it's just an added bonus because you're going directly to the source. Obviously, social media. I have a marketing brain. I've been in marketing for over 15 years, actually 20 years. Oh God. So anyway, social media, use it to your advantage. Use LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you're using to promote it. Because better yet, if you have a really good following, those people are going to want to share that you're hiring, that you're growing. And by sharing, you're getting more views. And by getting more views, you're going to hit people that are looking and wanting to look in the area. Okay. And then finally, physical boards. This one is tough because there's not a ton of physical boards, but what I would encourage you is think outside the box. We have physical boards. We currently have one in Olds right now at the municipal library. But think about like kids, think about your arenas, think about curling. Everyone curls in Alberta. Go to your curling club and post it on that board. Just a quick printout. You can even use your social media posts and just print that out and put it on your board. Again, just as long as your message is consistent on what you're hiring for and then where to go to apply. Interview smarter, not harder. So once we've kind of promoted it, we're attracting the right people, we're clear on our message, we're clear on what we want. Now we have to get to the interview. So I always say create a basic template. So a basic template meaning that something you're going to use consistently with every interview. So why? Because there's an easy comparison tool. You can see how different people react and answer to the same question. So we want to have consistent questions and a basic template we're going to use for each individual. Okay. So there's 3 kind of categories we want to really be specific about though. One is what we call our popular questions, or the questions that everyone thinks of. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Are you a leader or a follower? I always love that question because it doesn't actually matter if they're a leader or a follower. I'm more curious as to why they think that. So I'm more curious to see if they can tell me the connection on why they think that and how that can affect my company. What are your career goals? This is a really good one to make sure they're going to stick around. I do most of the mock interviews here at CAN, and you wouldn't believe how many people will tell me, yes, I'm interviewing for a barista job, but my goal is to become a nurse. And I go, oh no, 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 no. That's not going to work. So simple question like that can show the longevity of that candidate. Is that going to work with what you can offer them? How do you learn new skills? This is really good for training purposes as well, because then you can see the type of learner that they are. What do they identify as? How do they learn best? And is that something you can offer them, right? If you're a very visual learner, oil field can be hard. You have to be mechanical. You have to understand processes. You have to kind of like see it and do it. So if you can't do that, if you're visual and you're going to take slow and time, maybe oil field isn't the best option, right? So thinking kind of in that perspective. There's also what I call personality questions. Now, personality questions are figuring out an underlying issue. And I have had lots of employers come up with super creative ones, and I've included some of them here. You can really use these to your advantage because it kind of throws them off. It's kind of like a curveball. It's still related to the job, but it's different enough that they kind of stump and they have to really think and use that critical thinking element. It can also find things maybe hidden that you can't necessarily just ask. Are you organized? Are you detail oriented? Lots of people are just going to say yes, but these questions really pinpoint, can they do that? Like, what is your favorite sandwich? Just so you know, I don't care what your favorite sandwich is. What I'm looking at is how you describe that sandwich. That will tell me how detail oriented you are, right? Someone who says they're a PB&J, or someone who says I'm a honey oat bread toasted with a little bit of mayonnaise, a slice of tomato, a slice of cheese, 2 slices of turkey. All of a sudden, that person is detail oriented, because if they're going to be that detailed about describing their favorite sandwich, they're probably going to be detailed in a work setting. Okay. So yeah, there's a couple of them there that I've put. Again, they're all problem solving, showing different marketing skills, like sell me this pen. Really great for if you're hiring for a sales role, right? Are they interacting with you? How are they selling that pen? Are they being over salesy, or are they actually interested in you and bringing you into the conversation? Okay. And then finally, behavior. So asking them questions about their past can determine future behavior. So how did they handle that situation in the past? Can they give you a specific example? That's what I always look for. Give me a specific example of when you've done this and how you handled it in the past. Don't tell me how you would think you would handle it. Tell me how you've done it, especially if you're hiring for someone that needs to have experience with someone who's more entry level or kind of new. Behavior is a little bit more just seeing where the baseline is for training. But if you're hiring for a manager or someone with extensive experience like a journeyman, you want to know what they're doing and that they know what they're doing. So behavior questions, tell me a time, describe a time. Those types of questions can really pinpoint, do they actually have the experience to back them up? Now, like I said, we want a template to use for each person, but we're working with people. And each resume will come up with different questions, right? Why is there a gap in your resume? Why is there change in career? So understanding you're going to have a template, but you might have a few specific questions for that individual versus another based on their resume. And this is the toughest part to teach because there's no true way of saying you're going to do this every time, because you might get a bunch of resumes and there are no gaps, or you might get a bunch of resumes and they all have experience and they've all been in the industry many, many years. But you might get a few question marks. You might get a few, I'm not too sure about that. I'm not too sure about this. So understanding that you do have some rights to question, which kind of leads me to this one. Whoa, stop. We're going to take a pause. Don't forget, in Canada, there are questions that are illegal in interviews. So questions related to discrimination, such as, but not limited to, race, ancestry, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity expression, marital or family status, disability, religion, and citizenship. Okay, so there are questions you cannot ask in an interview within Canada. I don't want to get into this because it's kind of a can of worms, but just know that you can't be outright and ask them, how old are you? What do you identify as? Now, things like citizenship, you can't ask them, are they a Canadian citizen? But you can ask things like, are you legally able to work in Canada? Okay, so there is a workaround with that one specifically, but know that there are questions that you cannot ask. So if you have more questions regarding this, certainly I can talk with you one-on-one, because quite honestly, I could make a whole presentation just on this alone. So just know that, yeah, you can't ask them how old are you, but you can ask them, are you 18 or older, in order to legally sell alcohol. So there are a couple of workarounds depending on your industry or role. But for more information on that, certainly contact me personally after the presentation. When you're in the interview, also look for the following. The first one is make sure they're answering the question. It sounds kind of funny, but lots of people do what I call off-roading, which means they kind of start answering the question and then all of a sudden they get nervous and they just kind of go on a different tangent and you're not even sure what question you asked. I've had that when I've conducted interviews. So just make sure that they're sticking to the point. Why that's really important, it shows their listening skills, it shows their organization, it shows that they can focus in on you and really focus in. Yes, interviews are a high pressure situation, so I do give a little bit of grace, but if it's something that's common throughout the interview, that's kind of a red flag for me. Make sure they're also interested in the job, right? The key to success in hiring the right people is people who want to stick around. So I find if we're in a rush to hire, which I get, sometimes we are. Sometimes we're desperate and we need someone right now, or we have a new contract and we need to get someone going right away. But if they're not totally invested, I would say if they're not 75% or more invested, or invested in you as you're talking about your company in the interview, that's another red flag to me. Then I question their longevity in the company, okay? Also, fit for people. I think this is the hardest part, is understanding your current staff, but more importantly, thinking about, does that person fit within your current staff, okay? My staff at CAN, Michelle can attest, are very laughy. They're very jokey. Sometimes people think that we're being mean to each other, but we actually do it out of love. So when we get someone coming into an interview, even if they're qualified and they're like more than answering the questions right, if they're kind of dull, if they're not getting the kind of little jokes or little funny remarks we're putting in an interview, and they're just kind of stand still, don't know what to do, we know that that person isn't going to fit long term. because we, as much as we are serious, as much as we really take our job seriously, we also need to joke. We also need to bounce off each other and make each other laugh and make each other feel good in our company. So understanding what's going to fit or what's going to fit well and who's going to fit well. If you're hiring for like 2 administrators to work together, understanding kind of her style, her learning style, that person's learning style is best possible in the interview, and thinking, is that going to go well or are they going to clash? So really understanding, can this person work well? And then general soft skills. This one can be a little bit harder to test in an interview. We really want to look at those behavior questions, those personality questions. Sometimes what I've done recently with employers is actually get them to do an activity to test their soft skills. So things like, especially if you're in a retail setting or a sales associate setting, then maybe get them to get up and interact with a customer in the store, or have a coworker join into the interview and pretend to be a client and see how they kind of bounce off of each other. You can also get them to do certain tasks. So maybe they shadow someone for the day, or maybe they you tell them to go pick out an outfit based on a certain clientele that's walked in, or pick out certain flowers or plants that for a certain event. So you can kind of test soft skills, test how they work with people through those kind of little activities, again, depending on what you do and then what you can offer in that role. And the red flag. So I've been talking about red flags the whole time. Red flags are really individual to a company and a position, right? For me, for example, I'm not good with numbers, but it doesn't really matter with marketing. So I focus on the visual. The fact that I'm not good at numbers isn't a big red flag because I don't work with numbers a ton in my position. Now, if I was being hired for, let's say, the bookkeeper role for CAN, that's a huge red flag. I need to be able to work with the numbers. So understanding what your company needs and what the position needs, and then just seeing if they align, seeing if, does a person communicate well? Do they make eye contact with you? Is there a language issue? Is there a skill issue? Can that skill issue be taught? So things like an Excel problem. Maybe they don't know Excel very well, okay? Those things can be taught, but something like how to be empathetic, how to be joyful or cheerful when clients or customers come in, that is very, very hard to teach. So we want to make sure kind of those softer communication skills are set. Otherwise, that can also be a red flag, okay? And finally, once we've hired them, I know I'm going really quick, but I'm trying to reduce everything. So once we've hired them, the big thing is having a training plan. So this is one thing I've worked really extensively with recently with an employer in Olds, is creating a training plan. But most importantly, we want to follow these 4 steps. So first is document. You want a document that not only outlines the person's position, outlines their training objectives. Better yet, if you can initial or sign every time they've completed an item. But you also want kind of like a resource binder. So the document and resource are together. The document outlines what training they've done, what training they need to do, shows kind of the progress throughout. But then a little resource. So what can they refer back to? What if they forget that one step? You don't want them going to you all the time. You want them to be self-sufficient at a certain point, but also understanding that if they need that little reminder because they don't do it every day, there's a resource or how to or a quick guide they can reference before coming to you, okay? So we want to kind of add a little step in between so that we show a little bit more dependency so that they have that kind of resource with them without having to come to us every time they forget something. They have something tangible they can look back at before asking further questions. And be open to questions, especially during the probationary period, when they're learning and when they're training. I always have to remind myself too, and I did this yesterday when I was training one of our newest hires. I've been here for 10 years. So what I think is common in this role isn't always common. So kind of meeting those questions. And if you're a little busy, if you're a little frustrated, say that. We're human, right? I had to say that to my hire yesterday. I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I just sometimes do these things and I forget that they're not something that everyone knows how to do." So I even stuck back and I was humble to myself and I was like, yeah, that was my fault. I went one step ahead. Let's go one step behind and talk it over again. Okay. So understanding that there is going to be headache, there is going to be struggle, especially if you have a lot of experience and they don't, but be open to as many questions as possible while training is going on. After training is completed and they're feeling confident, after that, you can be a little bit more picky is what I call. So after probationary period, if they come to me with questions, I actually volley back. So I don't necessarily turn them down, but I'll go, what do you think the answer is? So then that way they're kind of learning on their own, but you're not rejecting the question. Okay, so you're not saying, no, 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 you know how to do that. You just volley back and say, yeah, that's a really good question. What do you think you should do? Okay, especially if you know that they know the answer. And then finally, rinse and repeat is what I call. So make sure that you're doing the same thing with every single person. Again, yes, some people are going to need a little bit more training. Some people are going to need different courses. Some people are going to be a little less and more independent. But knowing that everyone has kind of the same documents, similar, if not the same resources, and that you're keeping consistent with it allows them to talk with each other as well, and that they know that they're getting the same information. So I'm a little over time and I apologize. I tried my very best, Michelle.
You did great, Ashton. Absolutely. Like, there's so much when, I'm sure everyone's heard the old saying, hire slow, fire fast. So the slow reduces the headache over the long term, even though it's like, yes, I need a body in this position really, really quickly. That might not be the best philosophy in making sure you've got a rock star of an employee representing your organization well and building your brand and doing all the good things that you want them to do. So Ashton, thank you so much. And for the people watching the recording, you have the Ashton's slides, as well as I'm going to put the link to the YouTube channel for Career Assistance Network so you can follow up. But again, it's no cost for Ashton to chat with you. And if you're in the Olds area, which I know some of you are, I know she comes out to Olds in person on a regular basis as well. So, and I love visiting with her, and I know you will do too. So thank you, Ashton, for a great presentation. I'm going to open up the floor just for a few more minutes, if you don't mind, to see if there are any questions from our attendees. So if you do have a question for Ashton, remember, no question. The only silly questions are the one you don't ask. So then absolutely unmute and ask away. Well, it looks like we've answered all the questions.
I'm going to say, was I that good?
Yeah, I think you were. I think you were. You were that good. But remember, you can follow up with Ashton at no cost should you have any business-specific questions. And absolutely, she is a fantastic resource. And make sure that you reach out to her. Ashton, thank you so much. For more details about what's coming up with the Regional Business Support Network and our Biz Bites, we have another great event, especially targeted towards employers and some employees, coming up in January. We have an expert in communication coming to speak to us about how to have those difficult, tough conversations in business, whether you're having a tough conversation with a colleague, an employee, a customer. We have Ray Hoppins, who is a communications expert. You don't want to miss it. I'll put all the details in the email along with this recording, or you can find it. It's already open on our channel through Eventbrite. Again, all of these Biz Bite episodes are, again, the good 4-letter F word, free. So, and they're accessible. If you missed one, they're accessible through our Biz Bite library now. So we have Biz Bites on social media, on increasing your sales, on how to get grants for your business, on AI for your business. It's quite an extensive library now. And now we have to add one more for hiring without the headache. Ashen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And like I said, my information is on the slideshow. So if anyone has any specific questions afterwards or just wants to sit down with me and chat, feel free to reach out and we can arrange something.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for coming. We'll see you in the new year. Bye for now.